everyone, it's Leanne. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you this illustration I did using ink pens and Copic markers. This is my first illustration of the year. And so I went to a cat cafe today. This is me at the cat cafe, and they had this cute little cat pillow. This is a local cafe we have in town. I've never been to one before. So my sister and my mom and I, we bought some day planners at Michael's. We decided to go there and work on our planners, have a tea, and hang it with the cats. So we had this little guy by our table, and I went over and said hello to him. The cats were all really cute and all up for adoption, which is really neat. So I took a picture of him, and this is the picture there. And so this is the picture that I used to base my illustration off of. So to begin, I sketched out my illustration right on the art paper that I'm going to use. This is on mixed media, Strathmore, and it's 6x8. And so I sketched it really lightly with a pencil, and then I'm going to come in and ink over the lines that I've drawn. So for my inking, I'm using a 03 sized Micron pen, Pigma Micron in black ink. These are my favorite pens, and I've been using them for years. They're awesome. So I'm just inking over my cat here. And so, as I mentioned, this is the first time I've done a proper Copic illustration. I have used Copic markers. I've had them for about 8 months, I guess. But I haven't done a full illustration, and I've been watching some videos on YouTube and checking out some other artist prints and what they've been doing on Instagram and stuff. And so I thought I would dive in, and my New Year's resolution is to work on my art this year. So this was my first foray into it. So actually, an interesting thing about the cat cafe. So I had never heard of these until about a couple years ago. My sister and I were in Europe on a bus trip, and we were in Budapest. And in the hotel lobby of where we were staying, they had rack cards. And in the rack, there was an advertisement for a couple cat cafes. And we were like, oh my God, what is this? And so we showed them to our bus driver, Frank, who was really adorable. And so he was like, you girls going to the cat cafe? And we're like, no. And then every time we'd get off the bus at a destination, he would meow at us or something, which that sounds really weird, but he was really funny. He was really nice. So that's the first time I ever heard of a cat cafe, but yeah, so we have one now, and it was really cool. It was neat to go there. The cats were all really quiet and sleepy and stuff, but they seemed really relaxed and at home, and they had it set up really nice for the cats. They had their own little door to go in to go to the litter box, and it didn't smell at all, or there wasn't cat hairs all over the place. It was kind of funny though, because one of the cats jumped up on the table next to us where some girls were sitting, and they were all like, oh, that's so cute. And I looked at my sister and I was like, oh my God, there's a cat on the table. Where at home that would be a no-no, but it was pretty funny. And we're like, well, it's the cat cafe, so that stuff goes on here. That happens. But it was really cute. The cats were awesome. And so they had books to read that you could sit down and just kind of take your time and enjoy the space. Or they had a TV on as well, and it was playing Friends, which I thought was kind of funny. And so I don't know if they were trying to emulate Central Park or whatever. I've never been to a cat cafe, so I didn't really know what to expect, but yeah, it was pretty funny. So here what I'm doing is I'm going over the lines of my cat again, and I'm using a 05 Micron. When I inked the little cushion on the right, I found that just the way I illustrated it, it was really dark, and so I wanted my cat to have the same heavier line so that it popped out of the picture a little bit. And so when I was drawing the ball on the right, it's actually kind of I don't know, it's like a footstool, but it's not really that big. I think it's more for the cats, but it's crocheted. And so when I was drawing it, I was like, oh my goodness, like, how am I going to draw crocheted fabric? And when I first started, I did it and it didn't look good. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be the worst part of my picture, and it's going to ruin my picture. I'm going to hate it. And then I went looking at my original picture, and then there was just something that clicked, and I was like, oh, I know how I can draw this. And so I drew it again, and it actually turned out okay. I don't know what crochet stitch you would call that. I don't think it's a stitch at all, but it looks convincing. So I was actually happy with how it turned out at the end. So it was a happy accident, I guess. So here I'm putting in the shadows first on my kitty. The kitty is gray, So that's sort of a harder color to color in because you really need to get the lights and the darks, but it is a darker tone overall. So I'm using this technique that I learned over the Christmas break. I did a Copic online marker class, and they would lay down shadows first and then build up your color, which I'm used to working the opposite way. So I decided with this kitty it'd probably work better if I put my shadows in first and I could start to see the forms and shapes of the body and then work up my lighter colors. So that's what I did here, and it seemed to help. I thought it worked out really well. And this one was tricky because it's a tabby too. It's got the undertones of like the lines and stuff. Even though it's gray, it's not solid gray. So I used some warm gray Copic markers for this, and then neutral tones, which if I had have had more warm grays, I probably would have added more of those. But I only had the darker shade in the warm, so I put them together and they complemented pretty well. I'm still building up my Copic collection. If anyone has bought Copic markers or has them, you know what I'm talking about. They are so expensive, but they're amazing. They are the best I've ever used. I've tried numerous markers, and I haven't found anything better than these. They're definitely artist grade. So my collection is slowly building. So I think with this little guy, I might try another cat next. I'm actually more of a dog person, but we have a kitty cat here at home. And so I would like to draw her. She's pretty funny and she's got a lot of catitude. I think she would make for an interesting portrait. I actually have a picture I'm thinking of. I took of her on New Year's, and I was trying to put my New Year's hat on her, and she was kind of running from the frame, and it's this funny little picture. I think it would make a neat illustration. I might try that. I might try that someday. But she's a calico, so I think that she would be harder to color, so I don't know, I might have to do some research on that one before I dive in. So with this picture, the picture I took, the kitty was gray and was sleeping on a red cushion, and then the cushion on the right was orange in the picture. I decided to switch up the colors a little bit because I wanted to do something that was more my style, more something that I would normally color in, and I really like candy colors and bright saturated colors and that sort of thing. So I decided to switch up the colors of the cushions a little bit and do something a little more fun and bright. This was really tricky because my kitty is gray, and so she is the focal point, and so adding any color around her really detracts from her being the focal point, so I really had to be careful about making sure that she was still the main element, even though I was adding all this color around her. And so I decided to go full on and use that as my advantage. So I kept her gray and her neutral, and everything else was bright and vibrant. And so in the end it worked out pretty well. I was able to put some nice complementing colors around her, and then keep her neutral, and she still remained the focal point. So that was the goal, and I think it worked out okay. So if you can see there, I took the cap off the other end of my Copic marker. A lot of my markers are still new, and so they're full of ink, and if you're using Copic markers and they start to get really ink heavy on the one end, the website says if you pull off the other cap, then it sort of alleviates the pressure on the ink, and then it won't blot down on your paper. So sometimes if the nib gets really saturated and it looks like it's going to puke ink on my paper, I pull the lid off really quick, and it happens instantly. It totally takes care of the issue. I was thinking too, it might be neat to try adding some Prismacolor pencil crayons onto this as well. I have some of those, and I haven't tried using them with Copic markers as a base and then adding detail with pencil crayons, but I think it would look really cool too. So it was something I was sort of thinking about, but I didn't want to risk it for this illustration. I was happy with how it was going and how it was looking, so I decided to just keep it strictly Copic markers for this version, and then maybe in a future illustration I'll try that. So here I'm coloring up that cushion ball thing that the cats had, and so this was the thing I was like, oh my goodness, even coloring it I was a little worried about how it was going to turn out. I decided to do a really dark color of blue in the background because it was knitted or crocheted, so it had empty spaces in the fabric and you can't really see what's going on. I assume it's stuffed or whatever, so I thought maybe if I just added the dark color, then that would add a little more depth and interest to the illustration, and then I could just highlight the yarn strands. And so now for the background, I think backgrounds are what I struggle with the most. I never know what to do, or I find that it's just overwhelming because I'll do the main object first and then I'm like, oh, this looks great, and I want to ruin it, and I'm going to put a background and it's going to be awful and whatever. So I had to think about this, and I didn't want to do anything too detailed because I didn't want to distract from my illustration. So I decided to do just something neutral. I had done the kitty and all the objects more in a cool color tone, or sort of in that realm. So I decided to use some warm colors for the floor and the background. And that can just sort of work as a contrasting element as well. So super simple, I just colored it in with a wash of light color, which is normally how I use my Copic markers. I don't normally lay down shadows first. I do a wash in the base color, and then I build up the shadows around it. And so that's what I did here. I was also thinking too, for the right side of the background, I could have did like a wooden floor or something, but I didn't want to add too much detail. So there is the finished print. I'll just sign my work, and there we go. So this is my first illustration of the year and my first time doing a Copic marker illustration. I hope you guys liked this video, and maybe I'll post some more art videos coming up. Who knows? If you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to be notified when I post more. Thanks for watching.